In this video, we are going to talk about 5 complex PTSD behaviors that push people away even if you're not really aware of it. I am Pauline and I am so happy you are here because as a fearful avoidant, you might find yourself in a situation every now and then where either a friend kind of pulls away or you end a relationship or your partner behaves in a certain way and you just don't really understand, or the relationship has ended and afterwards you're thinking, what happened? What happened? How did I get here again? How did I lose this friendship, or how did I lose this relationship? And most fearful avoidants, I think, tend to have complex PTSD in some form or another. And it just really helps to know what kind of behaviors push people away, because those behaviors might feel really normal to you and even natural or even good because of your training, as I sometimes call it, in your childhood. Those things can just feel familiar, but for other people, securely attached people, for instance, that can come off as not something they feel comfortable with. Let's just keep it at that. And I don't want you to think that you are wrong, or that you are broken, or that you don't understand relationships at all, or that you will never be able to connect. Connection is human nature. It is inside you. Nothing can take that away. No one can take that away. That cannot be broken. So it's just understanding your own behavior more, knowing where it comes from, and then healing a lot of the negative associations you have around connection and around love and around friendship and around being supported and nourished and nurtured. That will help you be able to easily sustain friendships and relationships and just enjoy it and have that be easy and stable and very fulfilling at the same time. So complex PTSD, if you are not familiar with it, is post-traumatic stress disorder. And we tend to know that from veterans that come back from war and have PTSD, but there is a complex form of it. There's a different form of it called complex PTSD, where small traumatic experiences that are repeated again and again consistently over a long period of time can add up to PTSD. And it's complex because it's not one experience that your mind or your fear brain goes back to again and again that you have visual flashbacks from. It's usually more emotional flashbacks, and because there is no before and after that event or experience, you tend to think that a lot of things that you're feeling are normal, or that they are your character, or that they are you, and that's not true. They are complex PTSD. I'm not going to go too deep into that. There are so many videos explaining C-PTSD beautifully, but I just wanted to focus on what the behaviors of fearful avoidance can be that push people away that you might not even really be aware of. The first one is pulling back. And this can happen actually after a beautiful moment, or after a moment of connection, or after a period of time where things are just going really, really well. And what happens for you as a fearful avoidant is that fears start to creep in. What if I mess up down the line? What if I hurt this other person, which is a very big one in the fearful avoidant attachment style? What if I hurt this other person? What if they expect too much of me and I can't deliver? This is also a dismissive tendency, this belief. But fearful avoidants, they are amazing. You are amazing. You have the capability to connect. You have so many beautiful gifts. You can be very enchanting to other people, feel like magic, add a lot of depth and quality to people's lives. And so it can happen that you build a friendship or a relationship kind of quickly, but then your old programming and your old fears come back. So you may be afraid that your partner will always expect this from you now. and that you will disappoint, or that when you are committed, that you have to be perfect, know everything perfectly, because otherwise you might hurt the other person. You will have to break up and then you'll hurt them, and you don't want that. So the reasons for pulling back are usually really well intended, actually, which a lot of partners or friends of fearful avoidance don't know, or have a hard time understanding. But to you, it just feels like I have to take a step back almost to protect the other person. And so it might not even feel that weird to you, or it could be that totally on the other side of the spectrum, you feel incredibly guilty and incredibly ashamed for pulling back and maybe even ghosting the other person just because you don't have the words, you don't have the training to know what to say to that other person. For instance, I just need a little bit of time to myself right now. You're really afraid that that is not healthy, or that that is not good, not healthy, but not good, and that they will reject you because of it. And so it's not that you don't want to, it's that you don't have the skills yet to communicate the needs that you have, that are completely healthy, that are completely okay. It is totally okay after a more intense period to need some more time for yourself. That doesn't mean that you have to pull back and break the connection completely. So that's just something that you might notice yourself doing, or not even be really aware of, that will leave people questioning, like, what's happening. And it could be so simple. I learned that after healing the fearful avoidant attachment style. It can be so simple, just a simple phone call or a simple text, like, hey, I know you want to meet up. I'd love to meet up, but can we do that in a couple of weeks? I have other things, or whatever. Just be honest about your needs. It can be so simple. I so wish that for you, that you would experience that. So the second one is accusation and blaming. I really didn't even know that I was doing this, because I was brought up with this being just an everyday, very normal thing. If somebody was to blame for something, they had to know, right? If somebody broke something, they had to know. They had to be held responsible for that. And then I met my husband, and his family just completely showed me a different way of dealing with this. Of course, things need to be fixed when they are broken. Of course, it's good to take responsibility, but there was just no accusation, no blaming, no pointing the finger, no figuring out who did it and who said what and who was to blame for the whole situation. And that was just, it felt so safe and so freeing, that there wasn't this big lens on me all the time about everything I did wrong. But after a while, and it took me a while to realize that I had this accusation and blaming tendency just ingrained so much. So whenever something went wrong in our life or in our relationship, I would find a way to blame my boyfriend, now husband. And I didn't mean ill with it. It was just, I thought that's how things operated. That was normal. And it was also, there was a fear underlying that if I didn't blame him or accuse him, he would blame or accuse me. So it was almost a race to find something to accuse him of or blame him for, so that I wouldn't be accused or blamed, which you may recognize. It's a defense mechanism, it's a deflection mechanism. It's not a bad thing. It's just, it comes from fear. And so when you've healed the fearful avoidant attachment style, you will notice that you have no desire whatsoever to blame and accuse other people, because you know that mistakes are just logical and it's fine. And it's not even that everybody has to take responsibility for everything they do all the time. It's much more free and much more loving. And yeah, I'm thinking, how do we handle things like this now? It's more like when something goes wrong in a relationship now, it's like, oh, okay, for instance, we forget to take something out of the freezer, just a very small everyday example. It's like, oh, okay, well, we'll figure out another way, instead of, you forgot to take it out of the freezer and now we can't have that meal, which it probably used to be about 10 to 15 years ago. So it's just, yeah, you solve the things, but you solve the things together, and everybody makes mistakes, and that's just very normal. So that's the second one. The third one is needing approval or certainty. And fearful avoidance can lean either anxious or dismissive. So fearful avoidant attachment style in and of itself has some characteristics that are very particular to the fearful avoidant attachment style, and I talk a lot about those on this channel, because on other channels and in other books I've never really had someone explain the fearful avoidant attachment style specifics that well. And so that's why I started this channel. But you can be a fearful avoidant and leaning anxious or leaning dismissive, so you kind of recognize yourself in either one of those attachment styles also. And needing approval or certainty definitely can be more leaning anxious. So that means that you're just pretty insecure in relationships. You never really know where you stand, and it feels like whatever they do to show you that they love you, to tell you that they love you, it's never enough. And so you need more approval, you need more certainty. And this happens, I think, more for fearful avoidance in relationships with emotionally unavailable people, where the connection is not guaranteed. It's not always there. You will really have to work for the connection. And so you kind of get into this more needy energy. Whereas when you would be with an anxious person, anxiously preoccupied person, then you would probably fill in the role of the dismissive a little bit more, just to manage the connection, because that is what fearful avoidants do. They have a fear of connection, not a fear of commitment necessarily, not a fear of abandonment necessarily, but mostly a fear of connection. So that needing approval or certainty, you might not even be aware of you wanting that or needing that, because sometimes fearful avoidants go about that in a different way than anxious preoccupied. They can be a little bit more emotionally intense and more volatile, like more on the angry side or on the mean side, than the anxious preoccupied, who tend to avoid conflict. So needing approval or certainty can be pretty hard for a partner if that's a constant thing that you need. That doesn't make it bad. That doesn't make you a bad person. It's just something that can be healed. And when you've healed the fearful avoidant attachment style, you will notice that you feel so much more secure in yourself, and you don't need to know constantly where your partner is at, which allows you to let them be them, and also let them have their emotions and their experiences, where you can just be present instead of being scared of what that might mean for you. So an anxious preoccupied person might be scared that they will be abandoned and the connection will be broken. A fearful avoidant person will probably be scared that their partner will get angry with them, that they're unsafe. So that's possibly why you might need or want approval or certainty. But that can definitely push people away if it's because this is the interesting thing, right? A lot of people who are very sweet and very kind and actually kind of people pleasing can be wanting approval or certainty. And it might feel like that's loving, but in the end, it's all about you, and you don't really have space to really be there for the other person and to really tune in and see what they need in the moment. Whenever they are struggling, you need approval and certainty. And that can be pretty hard for a partner. I only learned this after I healed it, because I thought I was being loving with, wanting them to be okay, needing them to be okay, and then also asking them if they still love me. And yeah, the things you learn after you've healed this attachment style. The fourth behavior is lashing out and deflecting. And I think this is so ingrained that you do it without really noticing that you're doing it in the moment, and then afterwards you feel guilty or ashamed that you actually did. And it wasn't until a few years into our relationship that I realized the impact it was having on my boyfriend, now husband. Because I grew up with that. It was so normal to get angry, to be yelled at, to have somebody be angry at you, to be, physical. It was so normal that I knew it didn't really feel right or, calm, but that wasn't something I was focused on it feeling right or calm. I just thought this is how you communicate. This is how you're honest. And I did not realize the impact it had until a few years down the line. And then I made a choice, just a very conscious, rational, deliberate choice to not get angry at my boyfriend anymore, because he never chooses anger, still doesn't. And that doesn't make him better or worse than any other partner. It's just that's not his style. He's a little bit conflict. How do you say that? He doesn't really like conflict. So we had to learn a different way to definitely talk about everything and have everything out in the open, but not with me getting angry, because then he could just shut down completely. And also I just made that decision because I didn't want to be that kind of person. I didn't want to be the person that he felt unsafe with, and that would just get angry about everything. So yeah, it was hard in the beginning because I felt like he deserved it. Like when he did something wrong, I felt like I was completely in my right. It was justified for me to get angry. And then I just, one point, realized there is no reason, there is no justification for getting angry. That is my own thing. I have to deal with that. That is my character. Nobody else can do anything to make me angry. And I worked on that a lot. But I can honestly say now, surely say now, that getting angry is not in my system anymore. Annoyed sometimes, but even that is just very few and far between. Angry is just not, it's no use, I never see it going anywhere where that really helps. So I don't even feel the urge anymore. But again, that took a lot of healing. Don't expect that from you in an instant. It started with a choice to not be angry anymore and to not think that it was justified to be angry at anything. And then it was a lot of healing for years to get to a point where it's just not even in my system anymore. And then the fifth one is being honest about how you feel. And this kind of has to do also with the lashing out. But I remember for so long in my relationship, I would just immediately, if I felt something, if it was a negative feeling towards my partner, I would tell him. I would tell him immediately. I would say, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that, or you are doing this, you are doing that, and blaming, accusing, lashing out, all these things. But I felt like that was the right thing to do, because what I believed was if I didn't do that, I wasn't being honest about how I felt. And I was sweeping things under the rug, and I was bottling things up, and all these things that you hear, like you have to let everything out, otherwise, it's all bottling up. And again, after a while, and again, this took me about 7 or 8 years into our relationship, I looked at this and I thought, but wait, I have already learned that so many of the things that I feel don't have anything to do with him. They are echoes from the past. They are triggers that are mine. And they are projections. After 7 years into our relationship, I really still had a hard time regulating my own emotions, processing my own feelings, and feeling what I needed and putting up boundaries. And so when you're still having trouble doing that, anything that comes up is, it feels really scary. And it feels so much easier to then just blame your partner or accuse your partner or just be honest about how you feel. While now, whenever something comes up, I'm like, okay, I am taking this seriously. I'm not pushing it down, suppressing it, or, trying to not feel it. I am feeling it, but I am feeling it on my own to figure out what this is, where it's coming from, what I need. And then if there's something that we do need to talk about, we definitely talk about it. But then all the emotional charge, or most of the emotional charge, has been taken off, has been processed already. And it's not like I'm perfect in this. I still sometimes jump the gun a little bit on that and talk about it too fast with my husband, because he's there so much of the time and I feel so comfortable with him. So it's logical that it feels normal to immediately share what I'm feeling. But it doesn't come from a place of anger anymore, or fear. So that makes a huge difference already. But I notice an even bigger difference when I sit myself down and I just kind of ask myself, okay, what is going on? What am I feeling truly? What are my needs that are underlying this? Are there any fears? Are there any other associations? And yeah, that really, really helps. And so many times, I would say like 7 or 8 out of 10, it has nothing to do with him. It's just something that has been triggered that I get to work through. And sometimes I ask him to help me, but that's a completely different situation than me blaming him or accusing him, or being honest about how I feel in a fearful or angry way towards him. So I never knew that this was a problem. It took me so long to see that this was actually not completely fair to him, and it wasn't working also. So again, this is not that you are a bad person if you do this. It's just, these are signs of complex PTSD. These are signs of the fearful avoidant attachment style, and you can heal that. It doesn't have to take years even to heal that. So it's just knowing this, knowing how you work more, can make you know that this is not you. It's not your fault. You're not weird. You're not broken, which is what I really want you to know. And then the next step is healing. And you can do that through my online program, Healed and Happy. You can do that in so many different ways. The path is all yours. And if I get to be part of that path, I am so grateful and so honored. But yeah, you will get to a point where you've healed it. And then you will notice all these behaviors you don't need anymore. And connection and just friendships and relationships are easy and so incredibly fulfilling. That's what I wish for you. Thank you so much for being here. I hope this was valuable, and I will see you in the next one.
Healed and Happy is a tailor-made online program where me and my team personally guide you through healing the roots of the fearful avoidant attachment style.